Greetings and welcome to the Chaos Engine. Playing demons isn't for people who like simple, straightforward strategies. It's a notoriously tricky archetype to start with because your exact playstyle morphs on the fly depending on your card collection and whatever chaotic synergies you manage to create with your cards. Honestly, half the challenge is just keeping up with your own deck. But here's the good news. Once you actually lock down those key synergies between cards, the engine clicks into place and the archetype becomes infinitely easier to pilot, turning what felt like rocket science into pure, unfiltered destruction. You might have seen some very strong demon boards in the past, like the one in the picture. Sometimes demons can be very, very strong, but at other times they can be very weak as well. And that's mostly because people might not know how to use their cards the right way, or they didn't find out about the right strategy to play them, to use them, to synergize them. That's why I'm here today. I'm gonna show you what demons are capable of. I will show you some very interesting cards, some very interesting combination of cards. I will show you ideas that were created in the past to make those crazy strong demon boards possible, but I will also show you some ideas that might help you, well, make your demons as strong as they can be with the amount of cards and the collection that you have. Demons, like all the other factions in the game, have something unique to them. Like, for example, the Berserk units come from Nords, or sacrifice is only possible on Aztecs. And demons have something to themselves that is called discard. Some demons have this unique brownish symbol in the top right corner of their card. And they have this ability called discarded. It says something happens when this card is discarded from your hand. In essence, what this means is whenever you have a card with this symbol on the corner that says discarded, you only get to trigger the effect of this specific card when you discard it from your hand. It doesn't work if you sell it, it doesn't work if you play it and then sell it, it doesn't work when you sacrifice or if you devour or even if you destroy it. It only works when you discard this unit from your hand. Let's talk about fading now, because fading and discard are closely tied to each other. Fading says this unit is automatically discarded if it is in your hand at the end of your turn. This ability can come in handy very, very often because every single time you want to discard a unit from your hand, you need another unit that you have to play or trigger first in order to make this discard happen. But if a unit has fading, it will also trigger every single end of turn as long as it is in your hand. Earlier I said that whenever you want to discard a unit from your hand, you need another demon to discard that unit, right? So let's show you what cards can actually help you. I will only show you some because demons are full of cards that can trigger play abilities or discard units directly. One is called the Invoker. He is a tier 2 unit that says on play, discard a unit to get a demon. There are different kinds of versions of him, like the epic version will give you a demon of a higher tier. The legendary version that I'm showing will, on start of turn, return back to hand so that you can play him again next turn. Then there is the the Imposter that says end of turn, discard a unit to gain 2/2 for each unit or spell in your hand. So the Imposter can end of turn also discard one unit from your hand. Then there is the Demonologist. There are multiple versions of the Demonologist, so I will show you all of them. The first one is the epic version that you might have. It says play, discard a unit to get a demon and give allies 3/3. This says on play you can discard, which is very nice. Another version says, well, the legendary version in the background says discard your whole hand if it's legendary and discard 3 units from your hand and get a demon. What's interesting about that is, and I think it's very important to notice, when you don't have 3 cards in hand that you want to discard and you play the girl, you play the cheerleading demonologist, she will not discard. She will only discard whenever you have at least 3 units in your hand that can be targeted with this card. You will always get the demon though, so even if you don't have enough cards in hand to discard and you want to play her, you will still get your demon. Then there is the last version of the Demonologist, and it's the version that has, in my opinion, the most potential. It says, ongoing, after you sell a unit, discard a unit to get a demon of the same tier. 2 left. It's important to note, when she's golden, she has 4 left, so she has 4 triggers every single turn. What that means is, whenever you sell a unit from hand or from the board, it doesn't matter, she will discard 1 unit from your hand and, well, gift you another demon that you want or maybe don't want to sell. But if you want to sell it, you can trigger the Demonologist again, so she can generate you gold. And she can help you find your demons that you want to use. So the Demonologist, no matter which version you use, is always nice to have. Then there is the Hollowed. There are simple versions of the Hollowed, like sell, get a Graham. Well, it doesn't discard, right? There's also the version that says play, get a Graham, or end of turn, get a Graham. There are simple, or even death, get a Graham. But it doesn't really matter, because what do we do with the Graham, right? Well, the Graham says you can't see it, but he will on play also discard 1 unit from your hand and give him save some stats. I'm not sure how high the amount of stats are, but I will say the amount of stats in most cases don't really matter anyway. The only reason you want to have that card is because you want to trigger another discard. The last one that I wanted to show is the Hellspawn Vanguard. There are a lot of versions of the Hellspawn Vanguard, but the one I'm showing you is also an epic version. It says play, discard your whole hand and give your units 2/2 for each demon on the board. This means he will discard the whole hand. It doesn't matter how many cards you have in hand. As soon as you play the Hellspawn Vanguard, he will discard all of them. Meaning, before you play him, it would be smart not to have cards in hand that you don't want discarded, so maybe play them first. There are even more versions of demons that can discard units or trigger play abilities like from the Hellspawn Vanguard or from the Invoker to then trigger another discard ability in return. You can combine them with a lot of units and you will see some of them in the future, but for now I think this can give you a good overview of what demons can do. Let's talk about the cards that can actually be discarded now. As you may have noticed, most of the cards I'm showing you on the board are actually a combination of fading and discarded units. But there are also cards like the Maleficent Chainbreaker that only says discarded. Let's go over them for now to understand what you want to discard and why you want to discard them. First, there is the Bullish Behind. I know he's a legendary card, all of the cards I'm showing you are legendary, but I want to show you what those cards can do just so that you can, get a feeling of what is possible with the faction if you manage to get a lot of demons. The first one is the Bullish Behind. He says fading and discarded. We know fading will end of turn discard the unit anyway, but we can also discard the unit manually. What does it say though? Discarded. Give my stats to a random demon, get a demon. So when he has stats, I don't know how, but he can get stats. We'll talk about the stat generation later on, but whenever he has stats and you discard him, he will transfer his own stats to another unit on the board. And he will gift you another demon. This is a recurring effect that will, always happen. I'm not talking about the stat transfer, but about the get a demon part, because many cards can get you a demon, but not many cards can give stats. I will talk about stats more extensively later on though. Then there is the Chainbreaker. There are multiple versions of the Chainbreaker and I will talk about him later on as well, but just to show you, he is one of the cards that can, help you generate the stats that you want to use, right? For like the Doubling Chainbreaker, whenever he is discarded, gives every unit everywhere, like in the shop, on the board, the units you sacrifice, the units that spawn on death, whatever, it doesn't really matter, will give all units stats. The Maleficent Chainbreaker will only give demon stats, but those stats are permanent, while the doubling Chainbreaker says only until next turn. Then there is the compounding Devilkin. He is a tier 1 unit that can, well, only get this discarded effect when you get this specific version of him. But he will make it possible for you to, well, generate coins. If you manage to discard him up to 6 times, then he can, when you sell him, give you 6 coins. Which is nice because, well, the more coins you have, the more you can do, right? Then there is the Blighthelm spawn. He can also fade away, and whenever he is discarded, he says, give an ally my damage and get a copy of me. That is very interesting because, like, the Maleficent Chainbreaker, the Doubling Chainbreaker, or the Blighthelm spawn, even the Compounding Devilkin have this effect, get a copy or get an exact copy of me. This says, when you discard the unit will come back into your hand. So it will not get discarded forever. You can still use the card for something else, like you can play it on the board, you can sell the card, it doesn't matter, you can do a lot with the card. Those cards that say get an exact copy of me or get a copy of me will come back. It's not the exact same card, but it's still, well, in essence, the same effect, the same card. You get what I mean. The Bullish Behind doesn't have this effect, meaning that the Bullish Behind will not come back once you discard him, but he will get you another demon, which is also very tempting. There he is, the Chainbreaker. In my opinion, the Chainbreaker is one of the most important cards you can get for your demons, and specifically, I think the Doubling Chainbreaker is the best one you can get. But the Trivela Chainbreaker is also very interesting, and I will talk about him as well. Let's talk about the Chainbreaker as a card first. The Chainbreaker is a tier 4 unit that has this discarded ability, and no matter which version of him you have, he will always generate stats for your demons, or at least for himself. Like the first one, the Maleficent Chainbreaker gives demons everywhere 2/2, and you get an exact copy of that card. Then there is the Chainbreaker, the epic version, that says give your units 2/2, then get a copy of me. He is just a worse version of the Maleficent Chainbreaker. Then there is the normal Chainbreaker and Legendary that says discard, give your units 1/1 for each demon on your board, then get an exact copy of me. So he can go up to +6/+6 if you have 6 demons on the board. Then there is the Doubling Chainbreaker. He says discarded, give your units everywhere +2/+2 until next turn, and get an exact copy of me, and improve this by +2/+2. Meaning, this card will give every single unit in the game, like it also works within the shop, or with, like I said, death abilities, units that spawn in combat, every single unit will have the stats that the Chainbreaker gifted your units in that turn. And every single time you discard the Chainbreaker, this ability will, well, evolve. It will become stronger every single time. The amount of stats that you might generate at the beginning might be trivial or actually completely useless. He might be very, very useless if you find him late as well. But if you manage to discard him, let's say 20 times, then every single time you discard the Chainbreaker, he will give all your units 40/40. And if you have another Chainbreaker in hand, this effect, well, in essence doubles. If you make him golden, it's not +1/+1, but +2/+2 like the version I'm showing you. If you manage to discard him more than 20 times, the effect stacks, and every single time you discard him, the effect stacks as well. Like if you discard him once and he gives all units +20/+20, then you have +20/+20 on every unit. But the next time you discard him in the same turn, he will give all units +22/+22. So he will give all the units +42/+42. And for every single time you can discard, well, the Chainbreaker in that turn, this effect will, well, stack on each other. So when you manage to get a lot of discards on him in your last turn, for example, he can make your board very, very beefy. The last one is a new card that was introduced with the World Cup cards, so I will talk about him on a later slide, but just to mention him here, There is also a new Chainbreaker that was introduced that will only give himself stats. He is kind of unique in that aspect, but it's also very strong. I will show you why later on. Let's talk about Wrath now. There are different versions of Wrath. He is one of the, I think, 6 discard units in the game, and he is the only tier 5 unit. If you look into your collection, you might notice that for every single tier there is one discard unit with this symbol in the top right corner. Wrath is the one tier 5 unit with this symbol, so he is the only tier 5 unit in the game that has discarded ability. Let's talk about the different versions of Wrath first. I will, as you can see, talk about new ones, but I'm also talking about old ones. All of them are legendary. There's only one epic, but he's new. I will also talk about the epic version though, so don't worry about that. Let's talk about the Unchained Wrath first. He says, discarded, give 2 demons +6/+6 permanently and barrier until next turn. Then get an exact copy of me. The epic version does the same, but only for 1 demon instead for 2. So there is the primary difference. He is still very nice though, because he will give all your demons, well, shield for 1 turn. It will fade away next turn, you won't have shield until forever, but every single time you discard him, he will reapply the shield, which is very strong if you want to protect your demons. The reason I wrote down keywords, unit spawn, and stat scaling is because he can have, well, multiple roles. That you might want or you might need. The second is the Eternal Wrath. The Eternal Wrath is the only Wrath version that will not come back, so he will not say that you will get an exact copy of him. But what he does is he gives demons everywhere cleave, well, on the board at least, cleave, and +4/+4, and every single time you discard him, the scaling will get +4/+4. So the next time you find and discard him, we will give all your demons cleave and +8/+8. What's interesting about him though is that you will only get him, well, you only need him once to get the cleave keyword on your demons. So once you discarded him, those cleave units will always remain cleave units. They will always be that way until you sell them. Then there is the Hadouken's Wrath. That is also a Wrath that I like to use a lot, simply because he says discarded, give a demon the ability Death, summon a Cerberus until next turn, then get an exact copy of me. What this means is he will apply a Death ability on a unit that you have on the board. Well, a demon on the board. It must be a demon. But every single time you discard him, this ability can get placed on a demon. It can also stack on 1 demon. So, well, what can happen is you have 6 stacks on 1 demon and he's on the last position, and then the enemy kills your last demon on the board, and out of nowhere 6 Cerberus spawn on the board. So he's very nice if you manage to get a lot of discards or a lot of stats on your demons with like the doubling Chainbreaker maybe. He has a lot of potential, but he is not good for everyone. Like sometimes it's better to have shields instead. Sometimes it's better to have cleave. And sometimes it's better to use one of the new cards, like the Starboy Wrath or the epic version of the Wrath. Those are also new cards that were introduced with the World Cup packs, so I will also talk about him later, just like with the Chainbreaker. But like I did before with the Chainbreaker, I will also mention him here, because he will, well, when he is in combat, transfer his own stats or his attack stats with the epic version to a unit on the board every single time, and you get an exact copy of him. So he will remain in hand, he will transfer his own stats on the board, but only in combat. Okay, let's talk about card combinations and synergy now. I think synergy is, well, the most important thing you have to grasp when you want to play demons. The reason is simple. You cannot allow yourself to roll the shop like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times every single turn to trigger the Hellspawn Vanguard because you find another one in the shop. So you need a way to consistently trigger this effect without well, spending too much money, too many coins. You still need a lot of resources on the demons to make them viable, and you don't want to spend an unnatural amount just to find units that you want to play. So what's smarter is using cards that have a lingering effect when they are on the board. One of the cards is the Hellbloom. There are multiple versions of the Hellbloom. The one I'm showing you is legendary, and sadly, I must say, the most of the cards that I will talk about from now on will also be legendary. Demons are a very hungry, very card-hungry faction because you need a lot of cards, because you need the synergies, and you need all of them legendary, because only the legendary versions can bring the most to the table for the demons. But I guess that's for most of the factions in the game, sadly, and we have to, well, find our way around it. Let's talk about the Hellbloom now. The Hellbloom has the effect that says ongoing after you play 2 demons, trigger a random play ability. 3 left. This is an outdated version. Just the other day they changed the Hellbloom saying that it will only have 2 left, and it doesn't matter on whether it's normal or golden. So you can only trigger the Hellbloom twice now, sadly. But Hellbloom is still very strong. The reason is simple. Every single time when she is golden, you play a demon, you will trigger a play ability, which is nice because we want to trigger the Hellspawn Vanguard, for example, just so that we can discard the whole hand. The scaling comes with discards all the time, right? So the most you can do is discard a lot of units to get a lot of stats in. Hellbloom can help you with that. Another card, well, as you can see, I played 3 Hellblooms on that board, so I wanted to show you that you can stack this effect as well. So when you have multiple Hellblooms on the board and you play a demon, and then, well, you can trigger up to 3 or even 4 Hellbloom abilities, depending on the amount of Hellblooms you have on the board. And it will not clash with each other. They just trigger the playability of the unit you have on the board one after another. Then there is the Demonologist. I'm showing you this version of the Demonologist, which is a lingering effect instead of the play effect that the Demonologist normally has, simply because the Demonologist can help you generate demons and coins. It says ongoing, after you sell a unit, discard a unit to get a demon of the same tier. 4 left. This is awesome. It really is. When she's golden, she can do this up to 4 times every single turn. When she is normal, she will only make it happen twice. But still, it's very nice because it synergizes very well with the Hellbloom. Because, well, for example, if you have this board, except the Unbothered Soulflame on the board, you can sell the unit on P6, and then the Demonologist will discard a unit from your hand, like for example a Chainbreaker, and then the Demonologist will gift you another demon, which you can play on position 6 to trigger the Hellbloom. Then you can do it again, you sell position 6 to get another demon, you can play that demon on position 6 to trigger the Hellbloom again. And this is a loop. You can do this until you trigger the Hellblooms and until the Demonologist effect is done. As you only need 4 demons for the normal version of the Hellbloom, as long as you have a golden Demonologist, you can trigger the Hellbloom with just the Demonologist alone. Then there is the second aspect, because the Demonologist will also passively discard 1 unit every single time you do this, right? So you discard even more cards than with just the Hellspawn Vanguard, for example, as your playability unit that you have lingering on the board. And every single time you sell a unit, you get a coin. So you also get 4 coins out of it every single time as well. So you have 14 coins instead of 10 on every turn, as long as you trigger this effect. Then there is the Unbothered Soulflame. There are multiple versions of the Soulflame, but I want to show you that version simply because it's quite easy to understand. It says, end of turn, discard a demon and trigger the playability of the demon to my left. So there are other effects like end of turn effects that can also trigger, like for example another playability like the Unbothered, but maybe also give stats, for example. I will show you a version of that later on as well. Then there is, for example, the Imposter, a tier 2 unit that will end of turn also discard 1 unit to become, well, to get stats depending on the amount of units in hand. I showed you that card in the past as well. You can fill that last slot for this specific setup with whatever you think is right at the end of the turn. So this is an idea of what you can do with, well, only tier 3 and tier 4 cards. We don't talk about the Soulflame, he's a tier 5, but you can put whatever you want on that position as well. As long as you have the cycle, that this one slot that you can cycle, right? It's not that complicated of a synergy, but it's very effective. So I wanted to show you that specific synergy first. Okay, let's show you some other examples on synergies that are possible with demons. Let's talk about the Flourishing Hellbloom first, because sadly this is also an outdated version of the Hellbloom. Now it doesn't matter on whether you make her golden or not, she will always have the effect play. Choose a different demon with a play ability to give it ongoing. After 2 turns, trigger my play ability. What this means is that after every second turn, on every second end of turn, it will trigger the play ability of the unit you chose with your Hellbloom effect. Like for example, if you play the Hellbloom on the board and you choose the Hellspawn, every second turn, end of turn, he will trigger his play effect. And this ability is stackable, so if you want to play the Hellbloom multiple times, or if you manage to trigger the play ability of the Hellbloom multiple times, this lingering effect of end of turn discarding, end of turn triggering play ability, can be layered. So maybe you have this ability 5 times on the Vanguard, and every second turn he will trigger his play ability end of turn 5 times in a row. And this can be very strong, because the longer the round goes, the more abilities you can stack on the Hellspawn, right? On the Hellspawn Vanguard. So that's what makes this Flourishing Hellbloom so strong. It's like, it's not just scaling in stats, because it doesn't really scale in stats anyway, but it scales in the amount of triggers you can use her on. She is stronger for the later game, but in the earlier game she is weaker than the Hellbloom I've shown you before. Then there is the Soulflame Orchestrator, and I think the Soulflame Orchestrator is very nice in that combination, simply because he says ongoing when you discard 2 units, trigger a play ability of a demon. When he is not golden but normal, he will only trigger after you discarded 3 units, but the amount of triggers, like 2 left, will always be the same. What's good about him is that he is not a playability unit, so the Flourishing Hellbloom cannot trigger on him, but he can trigger the Hellbloom or the Hellspawn Vanguard. So either way, and you discard 1 unit, the whole hand with your Hellspawn trigger, or you trigger the Hellbloom effect, which will help you stack this effect on the Hellspawn Vanguard so that he can, well, discard your whole hand every second turn. This is, well, very, very strong, because it helps you layer this Flourishing Hellbloom effect. The last one I wanted to show you is a Balrog version. Except the Gorgonzola, of course, but let's talk about the Balrog first. He says ongoing, after you refresh the shop 2 times, discard a unit to get a demon. 4 left. His ability is similar to the Demonologist that I showed you before, but for him, his effect will not trigger when you sell a unit, but when you refresh the shop. Which is actually helpful, because then you don't need to sell a unit on the board maybe, or you don't want to sell a unit from the hand. You can just roll the shop twice, and then the Balrog will discard a unit and gift you another demon that you may or may not play. After you trigger this effect twice, you can trigger the Soulflame Orchestrator, because he just needs 2 discards, right? And after he triggers, you can, well, repeat a second time, because he has 4 left as long as he is golden. When he is not golden, he will only have 2 left, so we always want to have him golden to make this synergy work. The last one I want to talk about is the Gorgonzola, but it's actually just 1 space that you can fill with, or actually 2 spaces you can fill with whatever card you have available for you right now in that specific state of the game. What the Gorgonzola does is she will always give you stats in some kind of shape or form. The epic version will, every single time you discard a unit while she's on board, give all units on the board stats. There is also a legendary version that does the same, but with more stats. Then there is the kickstart version of the Gorgonzola that says for every single discarded unit in the game, you will kickstart give stats to all demons on the board. And the last one, there is the Shop Gorgonzola that I'm showing you right now. End of turn, discard the strongest demon in your hand and give half its stats to the allies until next turn. So she will also give stats, but she will also discard a unit. The reason I'm mentioning her is because she can help you finish the board. She can be a wonderful unit to place on the board, no matter which version you have, and she can always help you give the stats that you need to survive. There's also another version that came out with the World Cup cards that were introduced into the game recently, but I will talk about her as well later on. Hand cards. All of the ideas that I've shown you so far don't mean anything as long as you don't have any cards in hand that can help you profit from the amount of discards, right? So what you have in hand depends entirely on your strategy. If you want to play for stats, and literally nothing but stats, you can play the Chainbreakers. I would always advise you to play the Chainbreakers, by the way, but if you only want stats, then you only play Chainbreakers. Then there is the Devilkin. He can generate you coins, so if you want to have more coins, you can keep that one in hand until he's worth 6 coins. Then there is the Wrath. He can give you keywords or stats as well, depending on which version you have. You can keep him in hand. And then there is another demon that I'm talking about later on, simply because he's another World Cup card. But yeah. So the more different cards you have in hand, the more different effects you can trigger every single time you discard your whole hand. It's random, by the way, which card you discard when you only discard one card with your ability, like for example the Balrog or the Demonologist. But discarding the whole hand is what's actually very strong, so I would strongly advise you to play discard your whole hand cards if you have them, like for example the Vanguard I've shown you before, because then you can get the effects of the discarded units, of all of your discarded units at the same time. The Chainbreaker can scale your stats, the compounding Devilkin can generate you more coins, and the Wrath can give you stats or keywords at the same time. But you don't have to choose which units you keep in hand, you can use all of their abilities at the same time. But it really depends on which strategy you go for, which idea you want to have, which cards you want to play, which cards you don't want to play. For me, for example, sometimes I don't play the Wrath simply because I want to keep discarding the Chainbreaker. But sometimes I want to play the Wrath because I want to trigger his effect to help me survive. It completely depends on your situation and your card pool. Well. There we are. World Cup cards. Those are the newest demon cards that were recently introduced into the game. And I'm strongly advising you to at least know what they do, because you will face them at least. If you have them yourself, then listen closely. World Cup cards are very nice because they play in a completely different way than the standard demons played before. To be honest, those are mostly cards that were introduced into the game like way back, a couple of seasons before they changed the game entirely. Most of the cards come from the old Gorm. He was a dealer that you managed to. I think he was actually the second or the third dealer in the game. So those cards are not new. Well, most of them aren't, but they are very strong nonetheless. The reason is simple. World Cup cards, World Cup demons specifically, get a lot of strength in the fight. They don't scale that strong in between rounds like the other cards that I showed you before, but they will be very strong when they fight and when they die and when they spawn and when they die again. It's very interesting. It's a very intricate combination of cards that work well together, and may even complement the other strategies I've shown you before, but they are very strong together but very weak on their own. So let's go through them first. The Maestro Soul Flame is a tier 5 unit with a death ability and taunt. The epic version only has the death ability and it's not as strong as the taunt one, the legendary version, but let's talk about the legendary version. He says, Death, give all units in your hand +4/+4 and improve this by +3/+1, then discard them. So he is a unit that will on death discard your whole hand. He works similar to like a Hellspawn Vanguard when you play him, but he only works when he dies instead of play. So he is strong in combat, he discards the hand in combat. The epic version does the same, but the amount of scaling isn't as strong. And he doesn't have taunt. Then there is the Chainbreaker. I've shown you the Chainbreaker before, and I've told you that he will only gain stats himself. He will not give all the other demons stats, but that is okay, because there are very strong synergies with, well, at least one specific card that I'm showing you later on. So he can generate a lot of stats on himself for every single time units are discarded. It will work in fight, like with, for example, the Maestro Soul Flame, but it also works when you are in the shop. He is just a scaler that becomes stronger the more often you discard units. Then there is the Midfield Destroyer Balrog. He is an epic version that was introduced. There is no legendary version of the Balrog, but he can do something similar to the Vanguard. When he gets played, he will discard 2 units and then give demons in your hand and on the board +4/+4. So he will give all unit stats and he will discard 2 units. It's not a whole hand, sadly, but it is still a very, well, mentionable effect at least, because he discards 2 units instead of 1, like for example the epic Demonologist. Then there is the Starboy Wrath. I've shown you him as well. He is very strong because he says, when discarded, get an exact copy of me. If I was discarded in combat, give my stats to a random demon ally. This means when he has stats, like he got stats through the Maestro Soulflame, for example, or through the Midfield Destroyer Balrog when on play, or any kind of scaling that works for your demons in hand, then whenever he, the Starboy, is discarded in the fight, right, then he will transfer his own stats to a random unit on the board. For example, when the Maestro Soulflame dies, the Starboy gets discarded, and when he has 500/500, he will give 500/500 to a random unit on the board. So those units become stronger whenever the Starboy is discarded. Then there is the box-to-box Hellspawn. The box-to-box Hellspawn is strong simply because he can help your demons in hand scale a lot. He says, end of turn, give demons in your hand +3/+3 for every unit you discarded last combat. He only works with the units that were discarded in combat, sadly, so he doesn't work with the unit you discarded while you were in the shop, but he still does his job well as long as you play the World Cup demons. He will help your units in hand, like the Chainbreaker or the Starboy, get even more stats every single end of turn. Then there is the epic version of the box-to-box Hellspawn. He's called Sweeper Hellspawn. He does work a little bit different than the legendary version though, because while the legendary version is only limited to the demons that were discarded in combat, he can trigger his ongoing effect every single time a unit is discarded. So it also works while you are in the shop. The amount of scaling he can give your units is worse though, and you have to keep him on the board. You cannot just play him on the end of turn to get the full effect of his ability. Let's talk about MVP Lucifer now. I showed you the Chainbreaker, the World Cup Chainbreaker that we got, and I've told you that for some reason he will only give himself stats, which in itself is bad, right? But with cards like the MVP Lucifer, those stats can still be very valuable for you, because when he kickstarts, he says, discard all units in your hand to gain their stats. So the stats that the Chainbreaker generated for himself can actually be used by the Lucifer as well. And when the Lucifer is golden, he will actually get double the stats of every single unit he discarded. So he can be very beefy, he can be very strong. It's a very strong combination to get a beefy, strong unit on the board every single kickstart. Then there is the Hellbloom. I've talked about 2 versions of the Hellbloom before. I will talk about another version now. And I think if you want to play the World Cup cards, this version of the Hellbloom is very important. Let's talk about the epic version first though. It says, attack, discard a unit to gain its damage. It doesn't sound that strong, but if you manage to discard the Starboy Wrath, for example, he will transfer all his stats that he had when he was in hand to another unit with just the mascot attacking. And then he will come back with the same amount of stats, which is awesome because then you can discard him again to transfer those stats again. So the mascot can trigger this effect. For herself, it doesn't really do that much though, because she will only gain the damage of the unit she discarded, so she will be very squishy as long as you don't have a lot of HP stats on her. The legendary version is a little bit different though, because the legendary Hellbloom says when you attack, discard 2 units to gain the strongest one's stats, then summon a demon. What this means is, instead of discarding 1 unit, she will discard 2, which is very strong because the chance of you hitting the Starboy, for example, is way higher that way. And the other effect is that instead of only gaining damage, she will also gain the HP of the unit you discarded. So maybe you discarded the Chainbreaker as well, and then out of nowhere, the Hellbloom gets a lot of HP and a lot of attack as well. Like when your Chainbreaker has 500, then the Hellbloom will also have 500 when you discard the Chainbreaker. Then there is even one more effect, because every single time the Hellbloom attacks, and there is a space on the board, she will summon a demon from your hand to fight for you as well. Then there is the Ankle Breaker Bullish. He is strong. I'm honest. The reason is simple. Every single time he is discarded in combat, he will give all units +10/+10, and he will get summoned on the board. And then you will get an exact copy of it. So every single time he is discarded, he will spawn on the board, and there is no limit to it. As long as you keep discarding him in combat, like for example with the Hellbloom, then he will just keep on spawning and spawning and spawning and spawning with the same amount of stats he had when he was in hand. So he is just a way to keep spawning units, because he just spawns himself every single time he gets discarded. It only works as long as he has discarded in combat though, so you cannot do it while you are in the shop. Then there is the Super Sub Hollowed. He is quite simple to understand because he only has this death ability that says discard a unit and get a demon next turn. So when he dies, he will discard a unit from hand. It can be the Starboy, it can be a Chainbreaker, it can be the Ankle Breaker Bullish, for example, and then you get a demon next turn. You just get one more demon that you can use or sell if you want. It's quite easy, it's very strong in the early game, it can help you generate demons, it can help you, well, discard the Ankle Breaker early just to play with him as well. He's quite nice to play. The last one, and I think one of the most important ones, is the Web Hands Doomsayer. I always call him Goalkeeper because he stands in the goal, but maybe that's just me. He has the ability that says Avenge 3, give your demons everywhere +5/+5, then discard your hand, 3 left. So what he does is when 3 units on your board die, he will discard the whole hand and then after he gives all your units +5/+5, all your demons +5/+5, and he can re-trigger this ability up to 3 times every single turn. By the way, when he's golden, he will trigger this ability twice, so he will discard every single demon in hand twice and give all demons +5/+5 twice, 3 left. What this does is you can guaranteed spawn the Ankle Breaker Bullish, for example, to fight for you on the board. You can guaranteed transfer those starboy stats to another unit on the board as well. So he will, well, help you keep discarding units from the hand while in fight. And I think this is a very, very strong ability, because discarding units in combat is what World Cup demons want to do anyway. Now that we have talked about what all those World Cup demons can do, let's think about some synergies and some strategies we can use them with. I will show you some boards. I will explain the first one. The later ones you can, well, think for yourself why this board is good. Let's talk about the board I will show you first. The Hellbloom will on attack discard 2 units. I placed her on the first position because the sooner you trigger her attack ability, the better. If she dies before she can attack, she is completely useless, so I put her on P1. Then there is the MVP Lucifer. I put him on position 2 because kickstart order is a thing in this game, so if you want to kickstart a unit, I would always advise you to put the kickstart ability as much in the front as possible. Then there is the Maestro Soulflame. I put the Soulflame on position 3 simply because he is a taunt unit, so you don't want to put a taunt in the middle on like position 2 or position 5, so that cleave units cannot kill all the units at the same time. Then there is box-to-box Hellspawn. We don't know how many cards you discarded last turn, but whatever amount of discarded you had last turn, he will give all units in hand a lot of stats on end of turn. So, but he must be on that position to get his effect. So he will be in there on that position in the fight as well. And then I've placed 2 web hand Doomsayers on the board, simply to get the trigger of this ability twice. And even if one of them dies because of overwhelm or another keyword, you still have another one that you can trigger to make it, well, more consistent and to discard more units. Now I will show you some other boards that you can create with the new cards, or even in combination with old cards if you want to. Pause the video and think how the board is built and why it is built that way. You might have realized that one of the boards doesn't fit in with the others. It's way weaker than the others because the positioning doesn't feel right. Think about which one it is, write it down in the comments, and maybe you, well, can learn from that so that you don't make the same mistakes. Now I want to show you something completely different. Because playing normal demons isn't for everyone. Sometimes you don't want to play demons at all, but I think there is one comp that might be very strong, so keep that one in mind. There is the Gargoyle in the demon setup, and the epic version, just like the legendary version, will on death summon one different, or when he's golden, 2 different highest stat or highest tier units you have discarded this game. And what you can do is you can combine it with other cards, like for example the Deadly Joke, or maybe even, I don't know, a Goblin card if you want. As long as this is the only card that you discard, it will always be the strongest one. So when the Gargoyle dies, it will spawn that card as well. It doesn't have to be demon, he can spawn whatever. And what people did, they created a scam board. A scam board is called a scam board because it doesn't really work like all the other boards in the game. It just makes it so that the enemy dies when attacking. And one of the cards that can help you do that is the Deadly Joke. I will show you the standard joke, the Deadly Joke first, simply because the effect is the easiest to understand. When he dies, he will destroy the enemy that killed him. So when, for example, a demon attacks the Deadly Joke will just in return kill the demon as well. And as long as you have more Deadly Jokes that can spawn than the enemy has units that can attack, you will win. And it doesn't really matter how many stats the enemy has. So playing Scam is very cheeky and it's not that hard, it's not that easy to accomplish. But when you manage to get the strategy going, then you will, well, mostly scam a lot of people of their wins. It doesn't work against all the summoning comps, like for example ninjas or goblins that well. It still works, it can work, but you have to be very strong and you would have to have a very strong scam board to counter the amount of summons that can happen. What can help you with that strategy though is, well, there are a lot of neutral cards that can help you. Like for example the Mimic Shapeshifter. Here's a legendary version that says on play transform into a plain copy of a random ally. He can transform into a gargoyle. Then there is the Cascading Noble. He will permanently make a random tier 1 to tier 3 unit golden, so you can play him on a gargoyle you just copied with your Mimic Shapeshifter, for example, to get another golden gargoyle. Then there is the Adventurous Couple. The Adventurous Couple can hide a unit in itself. She can capture, and after 3 turns she will, well, spawn the unit she captured, but in a golden version of it. So when you capture a normal gargoyle, she will capture a normal gargoyle and then make it golden after 3 turns. Another effect that is actually very nice is the fact that, as you might have realized, the more units you have of the more copies you have of a specific unit, the less versions you will find in the shop. And this is for every single card in the game. Every single card has 6 copies of it in the shop. And when you bought all those 6 copies, or you got those 6 copies via transforming or maybe gating it, whatever, as long as the moment you have 6 copies, meaning 2 golden versions of that unit, you cannot find that unit in the shop again. But when you capture that unit, like for example if you have 2 golden gargoyles on the board and you capture your gargoyle with, for example, the chosen shapeshifter or maybe the not yet adventurous couple, you can find the gargoyle in the shop again because it doesn't exist on the board right now. It is inside another unit, which means it's hidden, and the game will recognize this hidden unit as it doesn't exist. So you can find it in the shop again. It's a very interesting combination and it's not very easy to pull off, but if you want to scam some of your people, then scamming with jokers and gargoyles is the way to go. Last but not least, I thought about doing a little thought experiment with you. Look into the cards that I'm showing you right now and think, how do they help you in any way if you combine them with demons? I will only give you one tip: doubling Chainbreaker. Now, if you find any strategies or any synergies, write them down in the comments. If you find anything else, also do the same, write them down in the comments. I think doing this thought experiment with you can help you stimulate your mind so that you have a broader view on what cards can actually do and how they interact with each other. This is the core, or one of the core aspects of Arcane Rush in the first place, right? So have fun with it, try something new, play whatever you want, and maybe you find something that no one has ever seen before. Thank you for listening to my Demon Guide. I hope you found something new to discover, and I hope your mind is stimulated a little bit so that you can do better in your next demon run. I wish you the best of creating and good luck. If you want to see what demons can do firsthand, then watch until the very end. Have fun.
That's all I'm good at. Haven't been wet.